Welcome to Internet Insanity.
Welcome to Internet Insanity. I'm David, the co-host with
Ezra.
Hey Ezra. Welcome to Internet Insanity, where we deal with the frustration of the internet, and we also interview artists and the anxiety of putting yourself out there. So I have some good news. I won my fifth internet argument.
Nice. do you want a medal or a trophy or something? Do they send them out just automatically?
No,
No.
it should be. Someone should do an artwork on it, just like, hey, look, arguments can sometimes be resolved.
Okay.
I don't know.
What was the argument about?
The argument was about, it was about AA.
Okay.
And someone had a problem with it, and then I commented, I agreed, and there's actually more problems than I think. But I was also like, but I also love AA, so, and then this person put a snide remark like, oh, I'm not in the same circles as you, which, by the way, random weird thought, I think Gen Xers love doing that. But anyways,
Oh, this was a Gen Xer. I was picturing a boomer.
No, it's a Gen Xer where I was like, "Hey, kid, let me know when you really want to be cool."
Oh shit.
And so I said, "Well, I care about this issue, and if you want to be kind of like sanctimonious, like you don't have to criticize me, or we can talk about it." And he replied, "All right, you want to talk about it? Let me just first tell you something what I think about you." And then it was a litany of insults, like the most hurtful things, like social life, like you must know, like no one likes you, and you're ugly, and like it was just like really, really mean.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I kind of expected it because I don't know. I know how to trigger narcissistic behaviors in people. Anyways, um, so there's this huge list, and then maybe one comment like, "Yeah, I think sexual predation is pretty bad," or something like that. And then I was like, "Okay, well, I don't see how these insults are helping anybody."
Mm-hmm.
And he went, "Well, you started it." And so how the whole thing got resolved is my next comment was, "Okay, person dash, I am sorry for insulting you." That was it. And I gave it a minute.
Wow.
Yeah.
Clap, 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 clap.
And then the next thing was like, okay, I'm gonna try and find what you were saying. I'm not gonna defend myself for any of the insults. I'd appreciate an apology, but that's okay. Just give me a minute to respond. And a couple people were like, "Thank you, David," and all these like support, which was nice. And then he replied, "You know what? I'm sorry too."
Ooh! Oh my god!
Not cool.
That's
And, like,
cool. That never happens.
It never happens.
No.
And then it was late, and I had to go to sleep. So I went, I'll respond to all this tomorrow. I have to go to bed. Take care of yourself and have a good evening. He was like, you take care too.
Whoa!
Yeah,
And now they're getting married in the summer. That's beautiful.
Yeah,
No, that's
change
genuinely
AA together.
That's genuinely very cool.
It was cool. Because when he made all those insults, they did hurt, even though they weren't true. It was just like, how horrible of a person do you think I am by responding in just my opinion.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, it felt good to just not take it personally. And just, I kind of treated him like as if we were in the same room together.
Mm-hmm.
Like if he was doing that, I'd be like, whoa, 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 like, let's take a breath. Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Type of thing. But yeah, it felt good. I don't really do it that much. I'm very particular when I comment on stuff because there's a lot of fighting on the internet and a lot of like tragic news and stuff, and yeah, I don't know. I don't want to add to the noise either.
Yeah, that's something that I have a really hard time with balancing, my emotions. I'm really sensitive to tragedy and, feeling a lot of stuff. And when I get overwhelmed, especially with tragic news, I like I feel like I just go on autopilot and I just start going nuts down a rabbit hole of like posting and sharing and reading articles and watching videos and just like last night I was up till 5:30 in the morning
Mm-hmm.
just researching this thing that's happening right now with the unarmed black men being murdered
Mm-hmm.
in the country, black people in general being murdered, and it's just so so awful what's happening. And I feel like as a person who's white passing, though I am Mexican, I'm very light skinned and I definitely benefit from white privilege, because most of the time I pass as a tan white person.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I did a poll on my Instagram one time that was like, would you see me as a tan white person or a light skinned brown person? And, you know, most people said a light skinned brown person, but even then, it really doesn't matter because the key term is light skin. And because there's just an issue with anti blackness in the world in general, basically.
Yeah.
And so, like, beyond racism, it just comes down to colorism and anti-blackness. And because I fall on the spectrum of light skin, you know, I have to recognize that, and that like I have to see that my pain, whatever I'm dealing with on in my apartment, in my space,
Mm-hmm.
in my little rabbit hole on the internet, doesn't even compare to what black people are going through right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't feel comfortable, you know, taking up more space to talk about how much pain I'm in
Mm-hmm.
on the internet. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? All I want to do is just like get content out there that's created by black people and share how to help the situation rather than be like, oh my god, I'm so emotional, this is a video of me crying, or
Yeah.
or whatever, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
I did write a song
Mm-hmm.
called Black Lives Matter last night, and I did share that because I think it's important to just talk about it, even if I'm not black. Talk about Black Lives Mattering, because the more people say that, I think the more good it does.
Mm-hmm.
So I've just, you know, that's been on my mind, and you know, I have a lot of feelings, and I don't know what to do with all of them, but I'm just trying to
Yeah.
do my best with what I've got, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, tragedy is tragic, you know? It's
Yeah.
like, I don't know. I don't imagine someone at the end of the day going through tragedy, hang up their coat on the coat hanger and being like, good job, boy. You know, good job, you.
Yeah.
Glad you handled all of that
Right.
tragedy with the, you know what I mean? Like self congratulatory. It's just, heavy hearts,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. And
all around.
ultimately, like, this issue, like, makes me uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Not just because it's sad that black people are dying, but also that um, racism is just so still alive and well
Yeah.
in the world. And it's something that is not black people's issue, it's white people's issue.
Yeah.
Racism is white people's issue.
Yeah.
And so, like, the conversation really needs to be happening between people like you and me
Mm-hmm.
who benefit from the system,
Right. Yeah.
you know, instead of falling on the shoulders of black people who are literally the ones being oppressed by the system, because it just doesn't make sense. Why would they have to fix the system that's not even like benefiting them?
Right.
You
Yeah.
know?
That's like trying to heal from abuse in an abusive relationship, and then also trying to help the abuser heal themselves. It's
Oh,
just,
that's exactly what it's like.
yeah. Well, yeah. This stuff on my end, I'm like, I don't know where to begin with. Like, I sent some of the texts and some of that, but there's a part of me that's just like, this is just nothing.
Like the texting the code.
Yeah, like I know it helps in calling.
Yeah.
And then as far as like the conversations with other white people, I want to, there's that term white fragility that I came across,
Mm-hmm.
and I've noticed that um, it's like if I bring up the subject, then everyone gets triggered. Their white fragility gets triggered, and then the discussion kind of just gets like shut down. And then to me, it's like I'm like, how do I like carry this conversation further,
Mm-hmm.
like for myself and for my friends?
Yeah.
Because I don't know, I'm used to just it being, I'm used to it just where we all just kind of shut down or get embarrassed because we kind of realize how racist we really still are,
Mm-hmm.
and then um, it's just like, oh shit, this is uncomfortable. This sucks, tragedy, yeah, all right, and then that's kind of how it just kind of like fades out into this
Right.
weird like man, what's the word? Well, denial's the word.
Yeah.
It's kind of, it reminds me of like alcoholic families, where it's like they're the big elephant in the room that they're not looking at. It's just kind of like, oh, it's not there.
Yeah.
No, we're just having dinner.
Yeah.
Like everything's fine.
Right.
It's kind of like, hey, like these racist jokes like are very closely tied to actual racism. And then
Yeah,
it's
I
like,
mean, they
well,
are
I didn't mean
racist.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's like, at least for me, it's like I'm not even if you didn't mean it, right now there's another way we could look at it. Like at least that's how I've found it a little bit helpful. At least with me and my friends, it's like um, I have a sense that if I push you any far, if I try to push you on this right now, the conversation's going to shut down, and you're going to be uncomfortable talking with me about this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, um, anytime I bring it up, all of a sudden I'm going to become that like woke PC dude who you got to like watch out
Yeah.
for. So I kind of just put it in little perspectives that are like common sense when I bring it up. It's just like, oh, would you say that in front of a black guy? It's like, no. Then I just leave it at that. I'm like,
Yeah.
all right, we both felt your embarrassment. I see you now, and I hope you can see me now. That's the part that I think I kind of skirt by a little bit with
It's
that.
it's hard. It's hard though because it's like there's got to be this balance between um, wanting to continue the conversation and keep these people in your life so that you can eventually, come to a better understanding of how things are racist and be able to talk about those things with them over time.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also like we don't have time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there is no time anymore. It's been 400 years of this shit.
Yeah.
And it's still fucking happening, and that's what pisses me off because like there are still people who are making excuses for these people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I get it because I experience something that I can compare it to, which is being a trans person and having that conversation being so uncomfortable for a lot of cis folks.
Yeah.
And wanting so badly to come to some sort of understanding to humanize trans folks
Mm-hmm.
with other cis people and just have that sort of connection so they can see me as a person rather than something that they have to kind of tiptoe around and not be themselves in front of or whatever because they're scared of offending me. So it's hard to find that balance because I do want to have these conversations in a constructive way that both people are going to feel heard and respected, but it's also like I don't want to respect your racism. Yeah. And I don't want to cater to it. I want you to be uncomfortable. In order to change, you have to be uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. I kind of disagree with that a little bit, but or I don't know, not disagree. I don't like when I started reading a little bit of this intercultural awareness literature. I don't know if that's what it's called, but
Sure. That sounds pretty.
It sounds pretty. But I remember at one moment I felt such intense guilt that I didn't know what to do. And so what I did was I looked up guilt and some of the emotional literature that I had previously, and something came up. It was there's a lot of debate on what emotions are. So this isn't like this isn't what guilt is. It's just one person's opinion that I found is sometimes really helpful when I need kind of like a clear cut answer sometimes. And it was that guilt is feeling you could have done differently, whereas shame is that you couldn't have done differently and people are yelling at you. are telling you you're wrong, and you're like, I couldn't have done anything differently. That's shame. Whereas like, hey, why did you steal that thing? And you feel guilty. Like, yeah, I really didn't need to steal it. So for me, I had this moment where I was like, okay, I didn't like, what could I have done differently? Like maybe I could have supported black people more. Maybe I could have had more of these conversations more. But um, like I had to be like, okay, but I'm not responsible for every injustice that's happening across the world right now. Because when I think that way, I just shut down, and then I don't want to take any responsibility, and I think I'm justified in not taking that responsibility, so I'm like completely overwhelmed.
Right.
And I think like I just kind of, at least with the friends that I've been trying it out, probably you know in a lackadaisical manner where I'm not like, dude, like we gotta stop this. It's like kind of more gentle.
Yeah.
I kind of noticed that it's like, hey, we can sit in this discomfort a little bit, and this isn't so bad, but at the same time, we're recognizing that it's way worse for other people, and we don't know that.
Right.
So like, let's just feel a little bit fucking uncomfortable,
Yeah,
over something fucking simple, like not making that dumbass joke.
right.
It's like there's a lot of things you can make fun of.
Yeah,
That doesn't have to be.
just stop fucking punching down. That's how I feel, at least with joking. Like, I think it's fine to make inappropriate jokes. I love inappropriate jokes.
Yeah.
But I don't like when they are contributing to violence.
Yeah.
That's something separate. And to a lot of people, they don't equate these kinds of jokes with violence because they're just joking.
Yeah.
But it all does come into play, and I think that it really does affect people's lives and the way we view Black people and other marginalized communities, specifically. When we joke about them and make them the butt of jokes in movies and TV and whatever. But we should definitely take a break.
Okay.
And when we come back, we're going to interview an amazing human being, one of my favorite people, actually. His name is Mars Wright, and he is gonna talk to us a little bit about his experience with the internet. And yeah, when we come back, we'll get into that.
Sounds good. And we're back from the break. Thanks for joining us, sticking with us.
All right, so our guest that we're gonna have on is Mars. He's a content creator and a transgender activist, aka the Wholesome King on TikTok, which is how he told me to introduce himself, and I think that's wonderful. He says, IDK, is that cute? It is cute.
Welcome to the program, Wholesome King.
Hey, you guys. Yeah, I don't know. I started getting crowned that a while ago, and I like it a lot. I think it speaks to who I am.
That was one of the things I first noticed when I checked out your Instagram, was how wholesome and friendly you were. It felt so nice, and I was wondering, like, is it hard being that friendly on the internet all the time, or is that just how you naturally are? Because I personally sometimes feel so self-conscious if I post something, and I feel like, I don't know, I admire the friendliness, and I really want to learn mimic some of that.
I think I've had anybody that's been following me on the internet has seen my journey. I've been like pretty much treating Instagram like a journal for the past about 3 years, and I think anybody that was following me the first year, I was really, really angry, and I was really upset about not passing. I hadn't started testosterone. I was really upset about the healthcare system not helping me, and I was really mad. And I posted a lot of really angry stuff. And then it's kind of shifted. Like, it's definitely been very obvious how I've matured through my Instagram, I guess. And now, as I've matured into a man, I feel like it's very important for me to recognize who is watching my content and like who my content is for, and it's specifically for that angry kid 3 years ago who didn't feel like he had anybody, who didn't feel like he was accepted, who didn't feel like he was trans enough, who was really angry. And so I talk to him every day, and that's how I'm able to be so nice. But there are days, I mean, honestly, since I've gotten on TikTok about 6 or 7 months ago now, and I've never gotten more hate comments than I have on TikTok. TikTok is extremely brutal, but
Whoa.
the thing that I have to recognize is like when you look at these people's profiles, a lot of the time they're like literally 9-year-olds telling
my
me I'm a
God.
woman. So it's like,
Okay, so
Yeah.
are they really just coming for your transness?
oh yeah, for sure. It's easy for Trump supporters or incels or transphobic people in general to find trans content on TikTok. It's why, and we'll talk a lot about the algorithm, I'm sure, because I'm obsessed with the algorithm. But the algorithm is built in a way that is very accessible to create content, and people can find the right content. But it also makes it easy for bad people to find your content. If they're looking for it, and it can be very dangerous sometimes too. I know people have been doxxed. I've been extremely lucky; it's never been that bad, but every once in a while, you will get a trans like celebrating your trans identity, and it'll end up on a Trump person's For You page, and then it'll just get flooded all of a sudden, and you never know which one will happen that way. Sometimes you're safe, sometimes you're not.
What exactly is an algorithm and
Yeah,
how do
so
you use it? Yeah.
I love the algorithm. I hate the algorithm. It's it's the thing that is always watching you, that's collecting all of your data, um, that's telling you what you should be looking at and what you shouldn't be looking at, and for how long you should be looking at it. The algorithm started, with Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and those started as like, oh, you'll just see the content as it comes, and then it switched to them curating the content for you, and thus adding in advertisements. And then they're able to see your click-through rate and the amount of time you're spent looking on those ads, and it kind of tricks you into believing these ads are a part of your real life and your friends. And then TikTok came out, and they have like the strongest, most creative, most effective algorithm of any social media platform, and it's strictly because of the For You page. And the way that the For You page is set up is it's chronologing. I think that's a word. It's
Maybe?
Yes, that's the one. It's taking all of that data from the moment that you enter that app, everything, how many times you rewatch content, what content you swipe past, what content you like, and it's creating basically an info bubble. It's giving you only the things you want to see, and creating it so it's going to be 100% addictive. And then on the back end as well, for content creators, the algorithm has a way of visually purging, which is a new thing that algorithms haven't had before, where they can see how high quality and like your lighting is even. So it's like, it's
Wait,
super
wait.
intense.
I want to hear the visual purging. What was that again?
It's like all the algorithms are crawling, like looking at your post before it goes anywhere and collecting as much data as it can. And this is the first algorithm that's able to collect visual data at such a high rate and cross-reference that with other content that's going viral right now.
Oh wow. And so
Yeah.
then is that so if someone's interested in racist or transphobic ideas, does the algorithm pick up on that and start feeding them?
Absolutely.
Oh,
Absolutely. And the really scary thing is if somebody is not only racist or transphobic, but a racist transphobic person who purposefully wants to comment hateful things on trans creators' stuff, more trans creators will come up.
That's terrifying.
So if somebody is transphobic or racist, and they are one of those people that actively wants to post hateful comments, be a troll, every time that they post a comment saying, like, for example, everybody posts on my page, you're a woman, you're a woman, you're a woman. Every time that they post on my page, the For You page and the algorithm is going to notice that they like to comment on trans creators' content, maybe even specifically trans creators that are happy about their life. So somebody like me who's dancing and being trans, and it will give them more of those videos. So it literally makes it easier for them to troll and be hateful.
Do you know if these algorithms have a bias? Like, I'm wondering if it's like an AI thing where they just kind of
Absolutely.
notice. Oh, can you tell us more about that?
So this is something that, and they've been getting more and more information about it as we're able to figure out. So obviously nothing that I'm saying is fact. This is just what I've kind of seen the conversation around this happen, and there has been some confirmation of some of this, but the algorithm a while ago admitted, specifically the TikTok algorithm, admitted to suppressing content from Black, trans, disabled, POC creators under the guise that they didn't want them to get as much hate or harassment.
Oh my god, that's bullshit.
Yeah, it's crazy. They actively admitted it, and they said that they changed it. I think maybe some changes have been made. There is the Instagram algorithm as well. For a long time, was viewing top surgery scars as self-harm scars and deleting a lot of trans men's posts, but that wasn't as purposeful as what TikTok did. And recently, people have still believed, even though that they made that public statement that they're not suppressing content anymore, people still believe that they're suppressing content. So when all this stuff with police brutality started popping off, it was actually last week, there was one content creator who said we should do a blackout, which was a social media protest. And I think it's the most amazing thing that I've ever seen happen with social media and activism, because what everybody did was we changed our profile photo to the Black Lives Matter fist. And for one day, just one day, everybody only liked, commented on Black creators. So everybody that was like a white creator that day, I wasn't liking their video, I wasn't watching their video, I was skipping it, and I was commenting and liking and following Black creators. And it was to actively break the algorithm, to make the algorithm respect and value and see. It's basically points. Everything's treated like points. So it's basically to give the algorithm more points towards all these Black creators. And I swear to God, you guys, it worked. When I went on TikTok that day, I didn't even see one white creator that I had to scroll past. It was all Black creators. And like, that is the power of new wave activism, like working within these systems, these algorithms, and these like computer things that are actively oppressing us, and being smarter than the people that fucking create. I'm sorry, I shouldn't cuss. Being smarter than the people that created these algorithms.
So wholesome king.
You're
You're allowed to cuss.
Yeah.
Okay, well, yeah, it's crazy.
Activism.
Wow,
That's really. Oh,
go for it.
That's really good news, because to me, I thought, okay, so the algorithm. I mean, I've kind of felt this way about. I mean, the activist stuff. I'm very much a newborn to all of it, and I'm just finding my way. But when I've noticed like algorithm type stuff, I've thought, don't give your money to people who are just taking your art and then saying, we'll get your numbers up, and then that just kind of fizzles out. Go out and talk to people and make, IRL, your main medium of communication. So that's what I was just kind of hearing while you were saying this stuff about the algorithms just kind of, suppressing marginalized people's social media accounts and things like that. And I just love that activists found a way to make them more seen and to fight against that suppression. That's just, I don't know, that's really cool.
Was there
amazing.
Was there any pushback on the blackout? Of
course, yeah. There's been a lot of people who are trying to do a whiteout, which is ridiculous, because if you go on any TikTok ever, it's all white people. The algorithm is built that way, and they've confirmed it, so I don't know why that's necessary. But honestly, I'm really thankful the algorithm maybe has made it so that I don't see a lot of hateful content, or I also think that TikTok is just full of people that are becoming educated literally through the platform on activism and social justice. And so the only thing I've seen is an up and coming LGBT day where we like and focus on LGBT content for LGBTQ plus content for Pride Month.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Do you think that social media has a good, like, I guess my question is, do you think that social media has a way of educating people in a more efficient way than, say, going to school would?
Oh, I wouldn't necessarily say efficient, but I would say a less classist, ableist, racist, homophobic, transphobic way. Because right now, I mean, there is still a digital divide, meaning that people in minority communities don't have access to the same technology that other folks do. But things that are talked about, the way that I've learned activism was I went to a university and I joined an activist organization, and I studied women's and gender studies and feminist theory and LGBT and queer studies, and that's because I had access to go to a university. But not everybody has that, nor wants to do that, nor should do that, and I'm able to give my knowledge that I learned at that university onto my platform. And there's a lot of other people doing the same thing. Like one of my favorite creators, she's getting her master's degree right now in gender studies, and she breaks down some really important topics. I break down things like the difference between gender and sexuality. I'm able to talk about what it's like to transition, and give people an example of what a real trans person's life is. I'm able to talk about activism and toxic masculinity and the ways that feminism and toxic masculinity have impacted my trans identity. These are all topics that people probably wouldn't have had access to because our media isn't going to tell people these things. And TikTok or Instagram or whatever platform you're on is one of the only ways that minority communities can make content by minority communities for whoever they want. So for just their community or for educating the greater public. But it's directly made by those people that are experiencing those things that they're talking about, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I find that, like, creating content online as a trans person, sometimes I feel the pressure to portray my life in a certain way to make it seem like I'm a very happy, well-adjusted person who's like almost being trans in a very digestible way, or in a way that cis folks would also be entertained by and not be like put off by. Do you ever feel pressure to like be a certain type of trans person on the internet because you do have a platform and are pretty visible?
That's such a complicated and interesting question. I'm so glad you asked that, because I know we've talked about this before, this like idea of palatable trans,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is so funny. For me, because when I transitioned, medically transitioned and came out as a trans man, I was already pretty much through college had been involved in all of these activist organizations and was very radical, and was very much against palatable transness. I was very much like, I'm non-binary, like I don't care about passing. And these are things that I still believe. I don't identify as non-binary anymore. But as I transitioned and started to actually become my true self, my trans identity became just very cut and dry textbook definition of what people tend to think a trans person life is. Like I really do feel like I was born in the wrong body. I really do feel like I've known that from a super young age. I really do feel extremely binary, even though I recognize that there is no, people can fit on the spectrum, but fitting into a binary gives me a lot of gender euphoria. So I was really afraid of being a palatable trans.
Mm-hmm.
But then
Yeah.
I kind of became a palatable trans. And I feel like it's important for me to use that ability to have people understand my story and be like, yes, this is my story. And then with every breath and with every time I share that, but this is not everybody's story.
Yeah.
We're all different and we need to value the complexities of the trans identity.
You're so good at talking. I love you. Um, I wanna make it clear because there are some people on the, like, that are gonna be listening that don't understand that when you say palatable trans, you're being grammatically incorrect on purpose
Yes.
for humor
For
humorous
LOLs.
for LOL only. So saying palatable trans is a joke, but the grammatically correct version would be a palatable trans person,
Yes. Yes,
right?
we're doing it to make fun of people that are transphobic who have said these things to us. If you're not trans, it's not a funny joke.
Yeah, you can't say it if you're cis.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just wanted to make that clear because I was like, I
No.
know that a lot of people have called me a trans before. It just doesn't sit right with me, but I will call
No.
myself a trans, and it's
Yes.
hilarious.
Because we're trans people. It's like it's the same as calling it's black people, it's trans people, it's people of color. We are
Mhm.
people first, you know.
Right.
That's when you get into that kind of language, it's dehumanizing, and it's all these little things, it's all these microaggressions that dehumanize minority communities.
Right, exactly.
I wanted to say something, to take a moment to say something that's very important and I feel like should be talked about.
Absolutely.
So Tony McDade was a black trans man who was killed by the Tallahassee police this morning, and he was unarmed. And I just feel like we need to spread some more awareness of black trans men and black trans folks suffering from police brutality, as much as everybody else. All Black Lives Matter. And this one goes out to Tony McDade. So I just wanted to say his name and say his gender.
Thank you for bringing that up. I read about that this morning before I even got out of bed, and I was in tears, because not only was I up very late last night crying about George Floyd, and then waking up this morning and seeing that one of our black trans brothers was fucking being misgendered.
Yes.
It was just really, really horrible to read. So I'm
Say
glad
his fucking gender.
yeah,
Hashtag say his gender.
yeah, yeah. This is a really important time in history, I think. Despite how terrifying and uncomfortable it is, I think it's really important to sit with the discomfort and call it what it is, which is that racism is just being videotaped now. It's
Mm-hmm.
been here. It's for every person that is murdered on camera, there are hundreds who are not being filmed.
Exactly.
And like I think that's really important to talk about because we have to start believing these stories even without the film, the proof
Exactly.
with a video, because it's starting to become more of just like trauma porn than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing these videos, it's almost I feel like it's almost contributing more to the dehumanization of Black people to have these videos just passed around so like nonchalantly.
So yeah, that's so important. No content warnings, like white folks just sharing like black brutality and black death can be really dangerous. I've been doing this thing, and I think this resource might help other white folks or white passing folks in this time to really take some direct action. But there's a workbook. It's called the Me and White Supremacy Workbook. It's free online. Literally, all you have to Google is Me and White Supremacy Workbook, and it's a PDF. It's only like 114 pages, and you go through it and you start to learn you and white supremacy and how those things have impacted each other. So I'm doing it with a friend, an accountability partner. But if you guys are looking for, if anybody, I shouldn't say guys, I'm trying to stay away from gendered language. If anybody out there is impacted by this and wants to take some direct action, this is a great resource and it's 100% free.
David, you read Me and White Supremacy, right?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Oh, hell yeah, David.
Yeah, that was the first book I read, and
it was the first book you read ever?
No.
It was 7 years old.
I don't know, book that was like, hey, some people are hurting really bad. Have you ever thought to think about it? Kind of book. And it was really, really intense. It was really good. Um, my experience from it was, um, I mean, it was overwhelming. Then I was able to. I mean, we were kind of talking about this at the beginning. I don't know if you heard us talking um,
Hmm.
first 15 minutes, but that was a book where like I had to start looking up different like outside literature on like psychology and things just to ground myself because she explains the stuff so clearly that it's weird. I mean, I used to kind of roll my eyes when people would say, "Oh, you're woke now," but in a sense, after reading this book, I'm just like, "Oh," like one instance I had while I was reading the book is when I went to Trader Joe's. There was a black cashier man and a black cashier woman, and she was bagging my groceries, and I noticed I had always been uncomfortable looking at black women in the eye, and I didn't. It was so sad for me, like just knowing that I could not feel comfortable looking at another human being. And I just, I just said, "Hey, I hope your day's going well." And I left just kind of like really grateful for that book because I was just like,
Yeah.
it, because I was like, I grew up. Racism is that when you're actively violent, but in that moment, it was like I've avoided just having a simple connection with another human being, and I didn't even notice it. And I like to consider myself like a caring person, and so
Yeah.
something like so it's a really good book. I recommend it too. I definitely don't think it's a book someone can really ever finish and then be like, okay, I got rid of my white supremacy.
Yeah.
It's
Let's
like a,
move on.
it's like a lifetime type
Yeah.
deal. I'm interested in reading it too. I'm starting to kind of uh, I think that I've rested in my brownness a lot and skated by with identifying as a person of color. Um, and now I'm more interested in looking at my light skin privilege, and pretty much at this point I feel more comfortable identifying as white than anything else because it's just true. Like that's how I'm perceived in the world, and I think it's important to just say what it is, Like, yeah, I'm Mexican and I've experienced being Mexican and what that's like and being from a Mexican household and whatever. But the truth is, I'm just not discriminated against based on my skin color. I'm white. That's it. So
Yeah,
I think it's important to think about. So I want to check out that book too.
yeah, it's really
It's
good.
Yeah.
cool. I'm glad
I
you
love. I
brought it up.
really. I really appreciate both of you guys' vulnerability in talking about these things, and I think that's so important for us to recognize too. Like especially David, you like that's an extremely vulnerable thing to share, and I think that more white folk and white passing folk need to start having conversations like these with each other and really owning up to that racism that has been so deeply ingrained in our society for so long. It's like we don't even, like you said, you don't even know how this happened or that you were doing it, and then once you had read the book, it opened your mind to these things. And it's so embedded in our culture, our media, every political figure, everything that we've ever seen reappropriates racism and toxic masculinity and the patriarchy. And sometimes we're brainwashed to it. And I think that's the scariest part of all of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Um,
I think,
Go
yeah.
for it.
Um, you should definitely come back and maybe we can talk about some of the stuff in the book together. If you're okay with that, we'd love to have you
Yeah.
back. And, I we also didn't get to all your wonderful artwork that uh, is also a part of what you do on the internet, right?
Yeah, I do. I'm a photographer and illustrator, and I have my own line of clothing that I make that's all quotes like trans lives matter, trans is beautiful, things. Again, anything that I create on the internet is just to talk to that angry kid that I used to be and to comfort him and to tell him that one day he will find love and acceptance and spaces where he can share his art and his story. And I hope that by just being authentic and telling my real true story of what it is like to be me as a trans person, not anybody else. I don't speak for anybody else in this trans community. This is just my experience, and all of our experiences are super diverse. But to be able to really share that story and it be by a trans person for the greater trans community means a lot to me, and I'm very thankful to have this platform.
Mars, you're just such an amazing human being. I'm so grateful to call you my friend. And, I think it's really cool how clear your message is.
Mm-hmm.
You can gather that so quickly from everything that you post and everything that you do on all of the platforms that I follow you on. And I really appreciate that. You're just such a joy to watch. And I know that for me, as a fellow angry little trans kid, you are somebody that I look up to and that I would have looked up to when I was younger as well. So I just really appreciate what you're doing for our community. You inspire so many people, and I just love you.
Aw, I'm gonna cry. I love you. You're an inspiration too. We're the shirtless trans dudes.
Yeah, that's what we do. We're the
We
shirtless
dance.
dancing trans dudes.
I'm ready to shirtless dance with you once all of this social distancing is less
Well,
happening.
tell the people who are listening how they can find your dancing.
Oh yes. You guys can find me on Instagram and TikTok at mars.right. And I also, this is very exciting, you guys. I haven't told anybody about this yet, but marswright.com was available for $15 last night, so I bought it.
Hell
You can
yeah.
find me at marswright.com, y'all.
And how do you spell right?
WRIGHT.
WRIGHT.
That's me.
Gorgeous.
Okay. Thank you so much. I look so forward to having you on again. And thank you. Just thank you. Yeah, it was really great.
Well, thank you guys. I really appreciate this this little situation we got to have, and I'm so excited to definitely come back. Let's talk about that workbook. I know it's going to be a lot of intense feelings.
Let's do it.
Okay. Take care.
Bye.
All right. Love you.
Love you. Bye.
Bye. All right. We are back from the break. That was an amazing conversation. I feel really grateful to have had Mars on here.
Yeah, Mars blew my mind the whole time. And I felt like it's like one in a sci-fi movie where all this like digital information's coming through your eyes and you're just what? The algorithm?
Yeah.
It's fucking us all.
Yeah, he's a pretty enlightened guy. He really does his research, and I really appreciate that about him. It's not he's not just talking out of thin air. He really does care a lot about that, and it really comes through in how he talks about these things. Like, he really is passionate about social media and how much power it holds over everybody, basically. I mean, anyone who experiences social media, even people who aren't really on it, are affected by it somehow indirectly.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's really important to talk about that, and so that's what I thought about him as our first guest. I thought, man, he would just be so great.
Yeah, I'm really glad. Yeah, I definitely look forward to having him on again because, the little stuff that I read before I burned out. One of the last things I read was a marketing book about the internet, and it said, "We found that what you want to do is you want the ad to target their heart or gut centers, not their thinking centers." And it was like legit in a scientific book. It was like you want to get past thinking and into like visceral emotion. And I remember being like, wow, this is really fucked up. And then but then like ever since then when I see a commercial, I'm like, oh, that's totally triggering this like, sub like this primal part. And then to hear Mars talk about that, not only, from what I read, that they have a way of streaming it, like streamlining it so that you keep getting more of it
Mm-hmm.
It's terrifying. But the social activism thing was really cool.
Yeah. It's really, knowledge is power, So if
Mm-hmm.
we have a knowledge of the algorithm, which I think not a lot of people have a real understanding of it, we
Right.
know that if we think about getting socks, and then we go on Google, and then an ad for socks pops up. We know, we all talk
Yeah.
about that shit,
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
super creepy, and it
Yeah.
happens to me all the time.
Uh-huh.
It's super scary. So we talk about it in that sense. We're like, oh my god, yeah, it's so weird. It's like reading our minds, but then it's actually reading our minds.
Yeah.
And there's a breakdown, and it's scientific, it's factual. This is
Yeah.
actually happening, and in order for us to take our power back,
Mhm.
we need to know how it works.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important, and it certainly makes me feel less insane when I think about, um, how I can use social media as activism.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Uh, inadvertently, I didn't really think I was doing anything special, but when I first started getting ads targeted at me, I just reported them as offensive. I just thought it was funny. I was just like, oh, this is offensive. And I kind of pictured myself as like some uptight Christian fundamentalist. It's like, don't send me a picture of this cartoon. It's not Jesus. And eventually I stopped getting targeted ads. I just stopped getting ads. And I was just like, cool. Now this isn't bugging me.
On which platform?
Facebook.
Oh, wow.
And then, but then you hear about how they're targeting people, and you're thinking about socks, and then it appears, and it's, I'm just going to repeat what you're saying. Knowledge is power, and that's comforting, because to me, social media is just this giant monster that's just making us all lose our minds, and then it's just insane. And at the same time, there is a thread of sanity and connection that um, is just it's great. As much as I don't want to admit it, because I don't like using because I don't like using it, it is great. I mean, uh, with the news, and like, the innocent, unarmed black people who've been murdered by the police. Ahmed Avery. I just remember thinking, I probably would never have seen this. Like, we don't like you were saying earlier, we don't need to respond to the video. Like, we don't need the videos to be um, upset, incensed, and try and work on fucking participating in each other's lives to make a difference. But I remember thinking, if it wasn't for social media, I probably wouldn't have seen this. It might have been in a newspaper article, maybe it wouldn't have been reported. And so there was a part of me that was like, yeah, I need to see stuff like this, or I don't know.
No, I get what you're saying. Like, it's important to just have it be brought to our attention in whatever way would grab our attention. But I think there is a respectful way of doing that, where we don't have to share gruesome videos of people dying in order for our gut reactions or whatever streamlined thing to target us, in order to actually feel passionate about saying Black Lives Matter. I don't think it should take watching people die in order to trigger that emotion. You know what I mean? And I don't think it's necessary. I think it's disrespectful, honestly, to share those kinds of videos without a content warning, especially. To just come across it casually on Facebook it's really upsetting, and I can't imagine how upsetting it might be for a Black person to just happen upon that. But yeah, I think with social media, it's really great that we have access to more information, and that we are hearing these stories and becoming more and more aware of how common this problem is, and how it's undeniably a fucking genocide, and it has been since the beginning. Nothing has really changed. And I think that's really important to say, you know, because
Mhm.
so many people rest in this idea that racism is somehow gone
Yeah.
or so much better than it used to be because slavery is done. And it's like, there's just, I mean, the time that has occurred
Mhm.
since slavery was ended or whatever is so short in comparison to how long slavery actually was happening in America.
Mhm.
It's like if you look at the timeline, it's insane the
Mhm.
difference. Like it's mind blowing. And then and then we talk about segregation.
Mhm.
That's even shorter amount of time. It's just there's just not enough time has passed for anything to have really been fixed, especially because we're not really talking about the fact that racism is still existing on a level that needs to happen in order for real change to happen. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
That's something that I think about a lot. I get really heated with this shit. I don't know. I think it's especially when so much is happening all at once in such a short amount of time, like 2 murders within a day of each other. George Floyd, and then black trans man who was murdered, Tony McDade, um, who's being misgendered by the news and barely being covered anyway.
Mhm.
It's really upsetting.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad Mars shared about how, yeah, a share can make a big difference.
Yeah, I can definitely, especially, and also just calling representatives, texting the number, and donating to organizations who are bailing out protesters
Mhm.
who have been incarcerated just because they were protesting these murders.
Mhm.
Um, so, yeah, I mean, I urge everyone to do their part in whatever way that they're capable of doing, um, and just recognizing the ways that we are all internally inherently racist because we live in this system. If you're white, you're racist. That's it. Don't argue. Just learn about it.
Mhm.
That's how I feel about it. It's like
Mhm.
don't sit and try to figure out how you're not racist. Just recognize the ways that you are, so that you can actively be anti-racist. It's the
Mhm.
only way that you can really help, I
Mhm.
think.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, this was the episode about racism, I guess.
Yeah. Hopefully, one of many.
Yeah, definitely. This is definitely a continuing conversation for sure. Yeah, you can follow us on Instagram at Internet Insanity Pod, and if you're an artist who also wants to be on this podcast, you can email us at internetinsanitypod@gmail.com. And yeah, let's talk. Let's have a chat.
Please, yeah. Add to this thriving, important discussion.
Yeah.
Because me and Ezra simply can't do it by ourselves.
Nor do we want to. All right. We will talk to you soon.
Okay.
Be good, everyone. Bye.